Margaret Stone stepped out of her black car and looked at her big house. She was tired from her business trip to Tokyo. The meeting with the medicine company had gone well, but she missed her son Danny. At 12 years old, Danny was different from other kids. He had autism and did not talk much. Most days, he stayed quiet in his room, working on puzzles or drawing strange patterns. The house felt too quiet when Margaret walked inside. Usually Danny would be watching cartoons or playing with his toys. She heard voices coming from the kitchen. One voice belonged to Carlos Rivera, their housekeeper. The other voice was Danny, and he was talking more than she had ever heard before. Margaret walked slowly toward the kitchen. She could hear Carlos speaking in what sounded like Spanish. Then Danny repeated the words back to him perfectly. This was strange because Danny had never shown interest in learning other languages before. His doctor said he might never speak normally at all. She stopped at the kitchen door and listened. Carlos was now speaking in French. Again, Danny repeated every word correctly. Margaret felt confused. When did Danny learn French? She had hired Carlos 6 months ago, and he only spoke Spanish and English with them. Then she heard something that made her freeze. Carlos was speaking in a language she had never heard before. It had clicking sounds and long musical tones. The words seemed to flow like water, but also had sharp edges. Danny was listening carefully, his head tilted to one side like he always did when he was thinking hard. Danny then spoke back in the same strange language. His voice was clear and confident. Margaret had never heard him sound so sure of himself. She pushed the door open and walked into the kitchen. Carlos and Danny both looked up at her. Carlos looked worried, like he had been caught doing something wrong. Danny smiled at his mother, something he rarely did. Hi, Mom, Danny said in English. Carlos is teaching me languages. I know 9 now. 9 languages? Margaret asked. She looked at Carlos with sharp eyes. What languages are you teaching my son? Carlos shifted from foot to foot. He was a small man with kind eyes, but now he looked scared. Mrs. Stone, I can explain. Danny is very smart. He learns so fast. I heard you speaking something that was not Spanish or French, Margaret said. What was that? Danny spoke up before Carlos could answer. It was Catherian. Then we practiced Zephyrian and Vorthan. Carlos knows lots of alien languages. Margaret felt her heart stop. Alien languages? Carlos raised his hands. Mrs. Stone, please sit down. This is hard to explain. Try me, Margaret said. She did not sit down. Carlos took a deep breath. When I was a boy in Mexico, I met some people who were not from Earth. They taught me their languages. They said someday these languages would be important. Margaret laughed, but it was not a happy laugh. Are you telling me that aliens taught you to speak their languages? And now you are teaching them to my son? The visitors told me to find special children, Carlos said quietly. Children who think differently. They said these children would be bridges between worlds. Danny had gone back to drawing while the adults talked. Margaret looked at his paper. He was writing symbols that looked like no alphabet she had ever seen. The symbols were beautiful but strange, with curves and lines that seemed to move even when she was not looking directly at them. Show me, Margaret said suddenly. Show you what? Carlos asked. Show me these alien languages. If this is real, I want to see proof. Carlos looked at Danny. Danny nodded and began to speak. The words that came out of his mouth were like music and mathematics mixed together. They made Margaret feel calm and excited at the same time. As her son spoke in a language from another world. Margaret realized that everything she thought she knew about Danny, about Carlos, and about the world itself was about to change forever. Margaret did not sleep that night. She sat in her study and watched Carlos and Danny through the security cameras. They were in the living room, and Danny was writing symbols on a large whiteboard. Carlos pointed to different symbols, and Danny would say words in those strange languages. Her son looked happy. Margaret had never seen Danny so interested in anything before. He usually got tired after a few minutes of any activity, but he had been working with Carlos for 3 hours without stopping. The next morning, Margaret called her lawyer. I need you to check on someone for me, she said. Carlos Rivera, he works for me. I want to know everything about him. 2 hours later, her lawyer called back. This is strange, Mrs. Stone. Carlos Rivera has a perfect background check, but there are gaps, big gaps. From age 8 to 18, there are no school records, no medical records. It is like he did not exist for 10 years. Margaret felt cold. What about his family? His parents died when he was 8. After that, nothing. Then, when he was 18, he appeared again with perfect English and Spanish skills. He got jobs as a translator for the government. The government? Yes, he worked for some department I cannot find much information about. The records are classified. Margaret hung up the phone. She was scared but also curious. She went to find Carlos and Danny. They were in the garden. Danny was talking to the flowers in one of those strange languages. The flowers seemed to lean toward him when he spoke. Carlos, Margaret said. We need to talk. Carlos nodded. I know. Danny, can you go inside and practice your writing? Danny looked at both adults. Are you going to send Carlos away? I do not know yet, Margaret said honestly. Danny frowned. Carlos is helping me. I can understand things now. In my head, everything used to be loud and mixed up. But when I speak these languages, everything becomes quiet and clear. Margaret felt her heart break a little. Go inside, Danny. We will talk later. After Danny left, Margaret sat on the garden bench next to Carlos. Tell me the truth. All of it. Carlos was quiet for a long time. Then he spoke. When I was 8, my parents were killed in a car accident. I was alone on the street for many weeks. Then some people found me. They were not from Earth, but they looked almost like humans. They took me to a place that was not quite in our world. What do you mean? It was like a school, but between spaces. There were other children there. All of us had lost our families. The visitors taught us their languages and their ways of thinking. They said Earth would need us someday. Margaret felt dizzy. How many of you were there? Maybe 50 children from all over the world. We learned that there are many alien races, trying to talk to Earth, but humans cannot understand them. The visitors said some humans have brains that work differently. These humans can learn to bridge the gap. And Danny has this kind of brain? Yes, his autism makes his mind work in patterns that match alien thinking. Most humans think in straight lines. Danny thinks in circles and spirals and shapes that bend back on themselves. Suddenly, 3 black cars drove up to Margaret's house. Men in dark suits got out. They walked toward the garden with serious faces. Carlos Rivera, one of the men called out. We need to talk to you. There has been a situation. Carlos stood up. He did not look surprised. What kind of situation? The kind where aliens are trying to contact Earth, and you are the only person who understands what they are saying. Margaret felt the world spin around her. Aliens are contacting Earth right now? The man in the suit looked at her. Mrs. Stone, your housekeeper and your son may be the only chance we have to prevent a war. The black cars took Margaret, Carlos, and Danny to a place that did not exist on any map. They drove for 2 hours through desert roads that seemed to go nowhere. Finally, they reached a metal building hidden behind rocks and hills. Inside the building, everything was white and bright. People in lab coats walked around quickly, carrying papers and talking in worried voices. Margaret held Danny's hand as they followed the men in suits down long hallways. They came to a big room with screens covering all the walls. A woman with short black hair turned to greet them. She looked tired, like she had not slept in days. I am Dr. Lisa Park, the woman said. I study alien languages for the government. We have been trying to talk to them for 6 months. We are failing badly. Danny looked around the room with wide eyes. On the screens, Margaret could see symbols. That looked like the ones Danny had been drawing. But these symbols were moving and changing colors. What are they trying to tell you? Carlos asked. Dr. Park pointed to the biggest screen. We think they are warning us about something. But every time we try to respond, they get more upset. Yesterday, they started sending the same message over and over again. It seems urgent. Carlos walked closer to the screen. May I? Dr. Park nodded. Carlos studied the symbols for a few minutes. Then his face went white. "This is not one language," Carlos said. "This is 5 languages mixed together. And they are not just using words. They are using math and music and emotions all at the same time. What does it say?" Dr. Park asked. Carlos looked at Danny. "Can you see the patterns?" Danny stepped forward and stared at the screen. His eyes moved back and forth, following the changing symbols. Margaret watched her son's face change. He looked focused in a way she had never seen before. "It is like a song," Danny said slowly. "But the song has numbers in it. And the numbers have feelings." "What feelings?" Dr. Park asked gently. "Fear," Danny said. "They are very scared. Something bad is coming to hurt everyone. They want to help us, but we keep saying the wrong things." "Back to them." Dr. Park looked confused. "We have been sending basic math and science. That is how first contact is supposed to work." Carlos shook his head. "These aliens do not think like humans. They think like Danny thinks. Everything is connected to everything else. When you send them simple math, they think you are being rude." Danny was still watching the screen. "They call themselves the Collective. They are running away from something called the Dark Silence. The Dark Silence eats up worlds by making everyone stop talking to each other." Margaret felt scared. "It eats worlds? Not like food," Danny explained. "It breaks all the ways people talk to each other. Then it breaks all their machines. Then the people die because they cannot work together anymore." Dr. Park sat down heavily in a chair. "How long do we have?" Danny closed his eyes and listened to something only he could hear. "The moving pictures in the sky say it will be here in 3 months." "Moving pictures in the sky?" Dr. Park asked. Carlos nodded sadly. "The alien ships. Danny can see them even when our machines cannot." Dr. Park stood up and started pacing. "So we have 3 months to learn how to talk to aliens who think in ways we do not understand. And if we fail, something called the Dark Silence will destroy our world." "Not just our world," Danny said quietly. "It wants to destroy all worlds where people talk to each other in different ways." Margaret looked at her son, then at Carlos, then at all the worried scientists around them. "What do we need to do?" Dr. Park looked at Danny with new respect. "We need to learn how to think like your son thinks. And we need to do it fast." For 3 weeks, Danny worked with Dr. Park and her team every day. Margaret stayed at the facility to be near her son. She watched Danny change from a quiet boy into someone who could speak with beings from other worlds. The alien messages were getting stronger. More ships were arriving near Earth, but they stayed hidden behind the moon. Danny said the Collective was waiting to see if humans could learn their language before the Dark Silence arrived. Carlos worked with other government translators, teaching them the basics of alien communication, but none of them could do what Danny did. Danny could feel the emotions behind the alien words. He could understand the math that was mixed into their language. Most importantly, he could think in the circular patterns that aliens used. "Show me again," Dr. Park said to Danny one morning. They were standing in front of the big screen that showed alien messages. Danny pointed to a group of symbols that were spinning slowly. "This part says that the Dark Silence is not alive, but it is not dead either. It was made by someone a long time ago." "Made by who?" Dr. Park asked. Danny closed his eyes and listened to the alien voices in his head. Race that lived before all the other races. They thought talking was messy and confusing. They wanted everyone to think the same way and say the same things. Margaret felt chills run down her back. "So they created something to stop people from talking?" "Not just stop talking," Danny said. "The Dark Silence makes people forget how to think differently from each other. It turns everyone into copies of the same person." Carlos joined them at the screen. "The Collective has been running from this thing for thousands of years. They have seen it destroy hundreds of worlds." Dr. Park looked worried. "If it is so powerful, how can we stop it?" Danny smiled, and Margaret saw a confidence in her son that had never been there before. "The aliens think Earth might be special. Most worlds have only 1 or 2 ways of thinking. But Earth has many different kinds of minds. What do you mean? Dr. Park asked. Carlos answered for Danny. Humans with autism like Danny, humans who think in pictures instead of words, humans who see numbers as colors, humans who feel music as shapes. The aliens have never seen so many different kinds of thinking on one world. Danny nodded excitedly. The dark silence works by finding the pattern that everyone uses to think. Then it breaks that pattern. But if there are many different patterns, it cannot break them all at once, Dr. Park finished. She looked amazed. Margaret felt proud of her son, but also scared. What do we need to do? Danny turned to look at all the adults. The collective wants to teach us how to make a sound that will confuse the dark silence. But the sound has to be made by many different kinds of minds working together. Like a choir, Carlos said. But instead of singing with voices, we sing with thoughts. Dr. Park started walking around the room quickly. We need to find people all over the world who think differently. We need to bring them here and teach them the alien languages. How many people? Margaret asked. Danny looked at the alien symbols again. The moving pictures say we need at least 1,000 people. And they all have to think in different ways. And they all have to learn to speak with the aliens before the dark silence gets here. Margaret looked at the calendar on the wall. They had 10 weeks left. 1,000 people in 10 weeks, Dr. Park said quietly. That sounds impossible. Carlos smiled. The visitors who taught me always said that humans are good at doing impossible things. They said that is why they chose Earth to make their last stand. Danny walked over to his mother and took her hand. Mom, we are going to save everyone. All the people on Earth and all the aliens too. Margaret squeezed her son's hand. For the first time since this all started, she believed they might actually succeed. Margaret used her money and power like never before. She called every contact she had around the world. She talked to doctors, teachers, and scientists. She needed to find 1,000 people who thought differently, and she needed to find them fast. Within 1 week, people started arriving at the secret facility. There was Kelly, a girl from Canada who could see numbers as bright colors. There was Ben from Australia who thought in music instead of words. There was Rosa from Brazil who could feel other people's emotions just by looking at them. Danny became the teacher for all these special people. He showed them how to hear the alien voices in their minds. Some learned quickly, others needed more time. But all of them could do something that normal people could not do. Margaret watched her son work with the new arrivals. Danny was patient and kind. He helped a boy from Japan who could not speak out loud but could write alien symbols perfectly. He worked with a girl from Kenya who could only learn the alien languages. When she was moving and dancing, Carlos trained the adults while Danny worked with the younger people. Margaret learned that there were more people like Carlos around the world. The aliens had been preparing for this moment for many years. They had taught special humans in secret, waiting for the right time. Dr. Park worked day and night to build the machines they would need. The aliens had sent plans for a device that could join all the different minds together. It looked like a giant musical instrument made of metal and crystal, but there was a problem. The first tests of the mind-joining device failed. When people tried to think together, their thoughts got tangled and confused. Some people got headaches. Others could not remember their own names for hours afterward. We are running out of time, Dr. Park told Margaret one evening. They stood outside the main building, looking up at the stars. The dark silence will be here in 4 weeks. We have 800 people now, but the device is not working. Margaret felt tired and scared. What are we doing wrong? Danny walked up to them. He had been inside, working with the alien communication device. I know what the problem is, he said. What is it? Dr. Park asked. Everyone is trying too hard to think the same way, Danny explained. The aliens do not want us to think the same. They want us to think differently, but together. Margaret did not understand. How can you think differently but together? Danny smiled. Like a puzzle, every piece of a puzzle is different. But when you put them together, they make one big picture. Dr. Park's eyes got bright. Of course. We have been trying to make everyone think in harmony. but we should let everyone think in their own way and then connect those different ways of thinking. The next day, they tried a new approach. Instead of teaching everyone to think like aliens, they taught everyone to translate their own way of thinking into alien language. Kelly spoke about numbers and colors. Ben spoke about music and rhythm. Rosa spoke about feelings and connections. When they turned on the mind-joining device this time, something beautiful happened. All the different thoughts came together like a symphony. Each person's mind played a different instrument, but they all played the same song. The alien ships near the moon began to glow brighter. Through the communication device, the collective sent a message of joy and hope. For the first time in thousands of years, they had found a world that could fight back against the dark silence. But their celebration was cut short. The space sensors detected something moving toward Earth. It was big, dark, and moving fast. "The dark silence," Carlos whispered. "It is coming early." Margaret looked at all the people they had gathered. 800 minds from around the world, all different, all special. "Are we ready?" Danny looked up at his mother with serious eyes. "We have to be. There is no more time to practice."